Lesson 10.2 on the volumes of prisms and cylinders. Now, this brings up the subject of volume. Volume is the measure of an amount of space contained within a solid. Think for a moment back to Chapter 8 when we studied areas. Areas are measuring the amount of space on a flat plane or surface, two-dimensional. But volumes are measuring space three-dimensionally, contained within a solid. For example, any gearheads out there, you might remember how engines are measured by cubic centimeters or by liters. Well, a 400 cubic centimeter engine is just a way of saying that it has inside its cylinders the volume of exactly 400 cubic centimeters for air and fuel. Or for those who love to drink pop, a 20-ounce bottle of pop has exactly 20 fluid ounces of space, of volume available for that liquid, available for pop. These are just two of many examples of volume that exist in the real world. But for the study of volume here in our unit, we're going to begin with prisms and cylinders. Now, the volume of a prism or cylinder is measured by finding the area of the base and multiplying it by the height. To compare again two-dimensional to three-dimensional, let's say that we have the circle here, and you're familiar with finding the area of a circle. But now let's not just take the area of that base, that flat surface, but actually extend it upward to find the space inside that cylinder, that volume. So we find the area of the base and multiply it by the height to actually obtain the volume of a cylinder. So for example involving a prism, let's say that we have this prism here. It's a triangular prism. Well, to find the volume of a prism, we first need to begin by finding the the area of the base. In this case, the base is a right triangle. We remember how to find the area of a triangle, just taking 1/2 times the length of the base times the height of the base. In this case, 1/2 times 7 times 3 gets us 21/2. And for sake of mathematical exercise, I'm going to keep it as an improper fraction rather than just taking it to a decimal. So the area of the base there in that prism is 21/2. If we multiply the area of the base times the height of the prism, in this case 5 inches, then we'll be able to obtain the volume of the entire prism, 105/2. Yes, you could certainly calculate that out to 52.5, but again, for good mathematical exercise, we're going to keep it as an improper fraction. But what's the unit? If you may recall back in Chapter 8, we expanded our units to square units because in order to measure space on a flat surface, we can't count using only length because length doesn't fill up space. So we introduced new units called square units. But in the same sense now, we can't measure volume using square units or length units because volume is the amount of three-dimensional space. So we have to cube our units. So the volume of this prism is 105/2 cubic inches. Now, to continue on, let's use an example of a cylinder, or more specifically, an example using an oblique cylinder. Now, to find the volume of this oblique cylinder, again, we go right to the volume of the base times the height, area of the base times the height. And to find the area of this base is particularly simple because the area of the base, it's a circle. And to find the area of a circle, we just take the radius squared and multiply it by pi. So radius is 7, square it, we get 49 pi. But what about the height? Recall from lesson 10.1, we talked about the height of an oblique cylinder not being the slant height, but rather being the distance between the bases. So if we said that the distance between these two bases in this oblique cylinder was 22 centimeters, all right, then we just take 22 and multiply it by the area of the base, 49 pi. 49 pi times 22 gets us 1,078 pi cubic centimeters. Thus concludes today's lesson.